Hello, all you hardcores out there. How you doing? Welcome to part two. Uh, just waiting for Adam to join us. Welcome, Adam, to part two. You all right, mate?
Oh, flying. I see you've had a change of background.
Yeah, I've put hunk on there. That's the sweater that he had on when he got arrested for his offence that he got locked up for.
Oh, such a good t-shirt, mate,
Imagine that
honestly.
on your mugshot. Hunk.
Oh, it's such you couldn't write the selection of garment. Oh, it's unbelievable. Fair, it's as funny as it gets, but nice one, man.
On every teenage girl's wall a poster of him hung.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's some snap. Again, just the choice of t-shirt on that certain day. I think if he could go back and do it again, he probably would have put on a plain black tee, maybe. But again, we can't change the past, can we, mate?
Can you imagine him coming over ill? Oh my God, eh?
Oh God.
What we do without him, Adam?
No, you know what? As well, that is something. It's like anything else. You don't notice how much. I wouldn't say how important it is, but you don't realize what you lose until it's gone. If anything, the fella, he does give us headline after headline after headline, and I'm chuckling
He
away a lot
gets
of.
it, doesn't he? He gets it, the PR, doesn't he?
He does. He does. You have to give him that. Like there's an ex UFC fighter. His name's Chael Sonnen. But he kind of made his name. His nickname was the bad guy. So tiny bit of background. He was a wrestler in college. Wrestling isn't like a super exciting sport. So he kind of realized when he got to the UFC, he's like, my style isn't that exciting. So I need to sell fights another way. And he kind of adopted this, the bad guy called, the toughest guy from the suburbs of Ohio. He had a comeback for everything. Oh, man, I'll send you some videos. He's absolutely hilarious on the mic. But he kind of does review videos where he covers boxing and MMA. And he said that, like, John Fury is like the WWE's dream. He was like, if he was in pro wrestling, he would just be must see TV. Um, and he definitely does have a point, like again, love him or hate him, he gets it. And he's always good for a headline and he's always good for a laugh, even if you don't, I was going to say mostly agree, but if you don't ever agree with what he says. But yeah, he definitely gives us something to
Problem,
talk
though,
about,
isn't
pal.
it? The problem is you've got to agree with what he says, haven't you? You can't go off script. You know what I mean? Or it's they ban you, don't they? Or it gets turned into arguments and
Hmm.
intimidation. You know?
Yeah, it's unrealistic. It's just completely unrealistic. I'm not saying anybody should ever be happy about taking abuse or go for their kids getting it, but they've largely based all their branding on, being outspoken, Dosser, sausage, all this. Again, if that's the game that you're gonna play, then you got to be ready to take it back for sure. And there's none of that. It's just when people aren't fully on side, they get kicked to the curb, and it's just a bad look. It's not good. Not good at all.
Yeah. Do you know these heavyweights and that? Where do you see Martin McCauley fitting in with it all? Do you feel like he's like the ugly sister at the ball that nobody wants to dance with?
Little bit. He's kind of quickly turned into the forgotten man, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Um, through kind of no specific reason that I know of as that should have happened. Um, I'm not comparing. I'm not comparing him to the likes of like a Rigondeaux. I'm thinking like these like fighters in the past that have been like unbelievably technical, but they haven't been great to watch. Where it's like, or even David Morrell now at super middleweight, where you're not going to make that much money, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare fight. Um, where it's stylistically, you're not going to look great, and you're also not going to get paid, and people are going to expect you to go in there and win. I think Bacoli kind of falls into that where people don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Um, But yeah, I would like to see him back in the mix. Especially as the older guard now are phasing out and retiring. Um, but if they, I think you see this happening in combat sports a lot, even in the UFC. I think promoters need to get better at phasing in the new lads before somebody pulls the plug out. Like, like the likes of Moses Atoma. I know whatever he went the distance and all the rest. And I know timing's everything. Obviously, boys are underage, whatever, but I think they need to do a better job at making that transition smooth where, when the likes of a Fury and an AJ and a Usyk and a Wilder retire, you've got that next crop coming through that can move the needle, sell tickets, spit on the mic, do all that fun stuff. I need to think to do a better job because when this heavyweight door of this generation closes, there's going to be a big hangover for a while in terms of ticket sales, in terms of media coverage. So they should be planning for the future instead of putting all their eggs in one basket. What do you think, man?
Yeah, yeah. And what do you think to the actual heavyweight division at the moment? If this doesn't happen, this Usyk Fury one, where do you think it leaves it?
Not in a great spot. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still good fighters coming through. In terms of what they're able to produce in the ring on the night. Like I know there's question marks over Dubois, but I think if he got
About to come to it. What?
yeah, I was just gonna say if he could get whatever is going wrong between the ears, if he can get that sorted, from a physical standpoint, he's got it all. He's athletic, he's big, he's strong, all the rest. If he's able to get it figured out between the ears, and if he wants to become a warrior, he's as I say, one for the future. I know he's there right now, but he's somebody you could kind of hitch your horse to. Obviously, there's Atoma. You've got, the likes of Frank Sanchez again. I don't think it's a style that's ever going to sell a million tickets, and I don't think it's going to be a fight that people are going to jump at if you're promoting somebody. But he's definitely a solid fighter. Um, but I think in terms of the war of words and what we've been used to, um, I don't see many Tyson Furies on the horizon in terms of like boys that can, encapsulate the audience, get people riled up, sing after they win, whatever. So I think to answer your question longly, I think the heavyweight division will definitely take a hit, unless they get boys to come out of their shell.
Do you think Fury's got 5 fights in him, like he said he's got?
Absolutely zero chance. No way.
No.
If if in his heart of hearts he really really wanted to fight 5 times, I think it would even be a struggle. Like if he had Usyk's mentality where he was completely bought in, I think getting 5 fights out with where his body's at, up at the elite level, I think it would be tough. But I don't think he is. I don't think he's got the mindset of Usyk. I don't think he has half the mindset of Usyk. So I just think there's a better chance of Conor Benn beating Terence Crawford back to back than I think there is a Fury fighting 5 more times.
Yeah.
And believe me, I don't think Benn ever beats Crawford. So you can see where I'm going at with that one. No way. 5 fights for. Do you think it's possible, Bud? I mean, if you're going to set an over under on the 5, where would you set it?
Well, of the 5, well, he must be talking Usyk twice.
Uh-huh.
He owes that Ngannou one, doesn't he? And you'd have
Uh-huh.
fought Joshua twice, wouldn't you?
I mean, yes. I think he'd be open to taking the Ngannou fight again because well, sorry, if it's within the span of the next, let's say, 18 months or 2 years, I think he'd be open to it because I think he can do much better than he did. Like, obviously, that's not a hot take, but he can do much, much better. I think the surprise factor was there. I don't think he trained proper. I'm not making excuses for him. I just don't think. I know he says I trained for 12 weeks and all this, but I don't think he took it as serious as he should have. I think AJ will beat Ngannou. I wouldn't say easily, but I think he'll beat him comfortably if he sticks to the right game plan. So I think if Fury got that Ngannou do-over, I think he would make it look a much easier job. But if we put that into the top 5 fights, I know Ngannou, I love him, and I know he's like I love him in MMA, and I know like obviously he's getting these fights, and I'm happy for him. But everyone's talking about Ngannou now, like he's this bona fide road killer. He's got 30 wins, 30 by knockout. I mean, the lad's had one professional fight. You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of a hot balloon, in my opinion. Again, I like him as a guy. I've been following him for years, and I'm very happy he's got one over on the UFC. But like even now, Mr. Hills is talking about Ngannou like he's Beterbiev or whatever. I don't see it. I think he handled himself very well in the fight, but I don't see him as like a bona fide. Like he's completely unproven. He has one fight. Well, what do you think, man?
Eddie Eddie Hills is just saying that Ngannou's this roadman. So when Joshua knocks him out, he can say, God, we've just beat a roadman. But if Joshua gets knocked out, Eddie can say, well, I did tell you he was a roadman. So,
Mm,
so just like it's a get out of jail on both accounts, isn't it, for him?
yeah, exactly right. They're covering all the bases.
Of course they
But
do, man.
yeah, but even still, it's like I know people change the narrative, and I know people use we didn't know how good Ngannou was and stuff. But what Eddie said originally is still true. This lad is 0-1 now at the top level. Um, like I don't know. Obviously, it's a fight and it's going to be sanctioned and all the rest. I just don't see like when I'm talking about 5 fights for Fury, I'm seeing like I look at 2 fights against Usyk and 2 fights against AJ as proper tough tests. I don't think Ngannou, if he fights him again, is as tough a test as like he kind of played into Ngannou's strengths. Like I think Fury has always based his game about, he's always been the bigger man. He's always been able to work on the inside and lean entire lads out. That was Ngannou's bread and butter in the UFC. Like these lads are wrestling and doing jiu-jitsu 4 or 5 hours a day. So none of that worked in real time in the Ngannou fight. Um, so I think Fury would have a different, but yeah, I just think he handles him easily if they ever get in there again, honestly. Or easier than he made it look the first time. I don't see how he can do worse. But bar getting sparked. But 5 fights for Fury, no way. No way, sir. I think it's two and out. Max 2 and out.
What do you think to Dev Sandwich coming out with Tommy Hearns quotes for Shiraz? You know,
Oh,
Ian Williams.
oh, I know all about it.
Same breath as Tommy Hearns, should he?
Mr. BLT himself. You know what the BLT stands for?
Well,
Bum licking twat.
uh,
It's
Dev Sandwich, you liquor, join the liquor squad.
yeah. I mean, look, people are tied to certain promotions and bodies and all the rest, but I think, well, sorry, the first time I heard that actually coming out the night of the show, it was, or anybody, it was Bricktop. And again, it's his job to promote his fighter. I understand that. I think Shiraz has a lot of potential. And he's already obviously got a lot of talent. I think he looked good in however long the fight lasted. But you're putting untold pressure on him, comparing him to Tommy Hearns now before he's fought, in my opinion, an elite level fight. Like I think even a peak Liam Williams, I wouldn't call it elite level competition. I know he was a good, solid fighter, but he was never, elite level in my opinion. Um, and you're calling this fella Tommy Hearns now? Like, well, I think you're putting a lot of pressure on the lad. I do think he looks good. Like he's, no doubt, he's definitely got talent. Um, but yeah, it's ridiculous on so many levels. I think it's unnecessary on the fighter. I don't think it's realistic. Um, and I think you might be doing more harm than good saying that now. Um, I wouldn't be on board. I would like to see out of that fight. I would like to see Williams probably hang it up. And I know previously I've stated, and I'll always say it, I'll never Man has to make a living. I'll never tell people how to act. But if he was my father, brother, cousin, if he was in my family, I would want to see him. I would want to see him hang it up. I mean, he didn't look like he could take a shot in the Eubank fight. I mean, he was dropped a couple of times, and one of them was a jab, a stiff jab, but a jab nonetheless. This is 2 fights on. Yeah, I don't know, mate. I think it's time to pack up the wagon. But yeah, I would like to see Shiraz obviously move on and make tougher fights. They're talking about, well, a lot of people have said they would like to see him versus Amo Williams in the
5 versus 5.
exactly. That'll be a nice fight. I mean, it's a good fight on paper. Again, none of this is what I'm saying. I'm not crapping on Hamza. I think again he looked, for as good as you can look, quick. He looked brilliant. I thought the kind of counter shot he hit Williams to put him down after he got up. I thought it was like, he's got good shot selection. He's definitely a good fighter. I would definitely like to see him involved in that 5 versus 5. Absolutely.
Yeah. I like to see him fight Eubank, me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good test in terms of, the old guard versus the new, and kind of turning the page. Yeah, you know what? Actually, we were talking previously. That's a fight I want to see for Eubank. I would like to see him in against Canelo, but I think it's more about money than the sport of boxing. I would like to see Eubank either fight Charlo for that belt and recess if he's talking about the gold, or if you want a domestic fight, if you want to prove yourself domestically, you get in there with this lad and see how you shape up. But I don't know. I wouldn't have said this until I saw Eubank get knocked out by Williams. But I think if that, if again, you never know until these lads move up a level. But if that performance from Shiraz is anything to go by the last night, I think there's a good chance he'd stop Eubank,
Yeah.
He hits hard, man. Like he's got brilliant timing and that kind of, I think it was a hook he does. I'm not fully sure, but he stepped back and stood back in and then put Williams up against the ropes. I think there'd be openings against Eubank, not as obvious as they were against Williams, but I think there'd be similar openings to where he would put it on Eubank's chin. And again, if this were before he got knocked out against Smithy, I wouldn't be saying it. But he's shown that it might have been to do with the weight cut with Ben, that's fine. But he has shown that he can be, put down and knocked out, TKO'd. So after seeing that, I think if I was to put a bet on the fight, I would put a Shiraz knockout. Maybe not as early as the first round, maybe mid-round, 6 to 9, something like that. I think he would. I think he would get to him eventually.
What
But I don't. Go ahead.
Oh,
No, you're fine, mate. You're fine.
no, so what do you think's that Bradley Skeet fight?
The Noakes fight we were talking about. No.
No, Bradley Skeet when he fought Shiraz, didn't he?
He did. I'll be honest. I didn't. I think I've only seen highlights, so I'm not going to say too much about it. I'll go back and have a look. But yeah, don't know too much about Skeet. But he looks the real deal in my opinion. Again, small sample size, obviously, and we can say Williams is shot all we want, but he still dispatched him quite easily. But it's not a fight. I don't think, if what we believe about Eubank is true and that he wants big money fights or he wants to fight for the gold, I think it's kind of high risk going in there against Shiraz. Because I don't, if he does lose, like I said, I think it would be by KO. And I think Eubank, he's not a fool, definitely not. I think he knows he's in the twilight of his career, and I don't think he'll risk another, Liam Williams, or sorry, not Liam Williams, Smith one fight where he gets stopped. So I would like to see it. Don't really see it materializing.
Well, it was 19-0, 15 by way of on Button Moon.
Mm.
He's only 24, so he's in mix, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He definitely looks the part. Again, haven't seen massive amount of tape on him, but you know, even in that fight the last night, again, it was short, but I think he showed some key elements. Like again, his timing was brilliant. He can counter punch as well as absolutely put a fillet into send him into orbit. And that's a dangerous combo if you can get that down. So he's definitely in the mix. Definitely, man.
What about him against Beefy?
Mm, I would like to see that as well. I think it would be I think it'd be a similar setup to the Eubank fight. I think he would get to him and stop him. Um I mean it depends, like we can only go off past fights, but there were a lot of excuses out of Beefy after the last one, overtrained, injured, couldn't take the weight off, all the rest. Likely going to hear it again if he loses, but I think at this point, you know, you've got a young bull in there, and I think Beefy obviously showed it in his last fight. The best days are definitely over. I don't think I think he would do his best to avoid that fight as well. I don't think he would take it, you know, because these older lads, and they're entitled to feel that way. I don't think any of these want to be turned into a meme either. You know, if they're going to lose, they're going to semi want it on their own terms. And I think Shiraz could send either one of them out on a stretcher. So I would like to see both fights. Don't really see them materializing.
Where do you think all this leaves the chocolate brownie boy, Kell Brook?
Mm, ah, if he's going to fight, it's going to be either against Crusher or Eubank Jr. And when he was on with Jordan on up front, he said that he would actually rather fight Eubank Jr. if anything, because he dislikes him more. Now, if we're to believe any of what we're being told about Ben, he wants Ennis, he wants Crawford, he wants Tank, he wants the creme de la creme. We're not hearing the same thing out of Eubank Jr. Gun to my head, I think if Kell Brook does get back in the boxing ring, it's versus Chris Eubank Jr. I think it suits both lads more. Eubank Jr.'s on the again twilight of his career is a nice way of putting it. I don't think he has many fights left. Um, I think he's going to look at a guy like Brook, as technically good as he is. He's been on the couch for 2 years. He's had these difficulties outside of the ring. I think he's going to look at it as good timing, you know, because whatever you think about his ability, you know, Eubank Jr., he squeezed so much in terms of money and fame out of not that much talent, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's terrible. I don't think he's not a complete gimmick fighter, but he's not, you know, he's not top echelon at middleweight. Um, so I think he does pick and choose nicely. And I think he'll see Brook as an opportunity to uh to make a lot of money and to put one of his old adversaries to bed after they're past his best. So I think Eubank Jr. will take it. I know Brook wants a fight coming back. I think that's probably the likely one to get going. What do you think, man?
At 160.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a possibility in this day and age, isn't it,
Yeah.
Adam? Do you think?
Well, this is all, again, this is all based on if Kell Brook does get back in the ring. Like, he's not going to try and come back and have a semi-long career. I don't think he's coming back. I think if he does come back, he's coming back for max too. And, you know, they have to make sense financially. And, you know, obviously he's not going to walk in off the couch and fight for a belt. So it comes down to a big domestic fight and a big domestic fight that makes money as well and a good matchup for him. I think pulling Brook up to 160 is going to be. I know people say Eubank Jr.'s weight trained at 160, but I think you're pulling Brook up. I know it was two divisions in his peak, but realistically, if he's going to come back, it's probably going to be at 154. And Eubank's not the most active of fellas, but he's been much more active than Brook. So I think it probably happens at 160. And I don't know, mate. I would like to see Brook win. I mean, maybe he pulls a rabbit out of the hat, but probably have to side just with Eubank Jr. in terms of who I think is going to win. I think it's probably 60-40, but a 2 year layoff or whatever it's been, it's a long time, man. You know, there's no Father Time waits for nobody. Nobody beats him. So I think it's a big ask for Mr. Brook.
Yeah. I've given some strength and conditioners a lot of stick in recent months. You think it's in order? You think they're needed in the sport of boxing, Adam?
Um,
Nutrition men, strength and condition men.
it depends on how disciplined a fighter is up front. Like if you look at our favorite bunch, the likes of Usyk, Loma, Beterbiev, all these guys, obviously they had good guidance and coaching from when they were young. But these lads have always had that Spartan mentality, only eat to survive, only drinking water, all the rest. The likes of a James Toney back in the day, he could have done with a nutritionist. Or maybe a Kovalev or some of these lads, where I think strength and conditioning and nutritionists, I think they can have value if they're going into a fighter that doesn't really take his career as serious as he should do. But I think with a lot, I think with most more cases than most, or more cases than there's not, I think it's kind of overblown in terms of how necessary it is.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit. Like, I know sports have changed. I know science has got better and all that. And I know these lads are trying to squeeze out every inch and every last drop that they can out of their careers. But I mean, it's a long time ago. You go back and you look at a Marvin Hagler, or you go back and you look at some of these guys. Like, there wasn't the science back in the day, and these lads kept themselves in just ridiculous shape. But it goes back to the mentality again. It's all about what's between the ears. If these lads want it hard enough, they're not going to be going out for pints and kebabs, and they're going to be looking after themselves. So I think ultimately it comes down to a fighter's mentality, what they're willing to sacrifice, what they're willing to give up. If you could hire the best nutritionist on planet Earth, but if a fighter is going to be squeaking out for a Burger King every Saturday after training, it's not going to have, it's not going to have the effect that you're looking for. So to me, it's more about the boxer than the science, for sure.
Yeah, you can give them all that advice and that, but if they're just going to go open fridge door, it's game set a match, isn't it? Because that's what finishes them, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. Not being able to run, just being overweight, not being able to take it off healthy. It's like all these mistakes roll into each other. Taking an extra day off, now you have more weight, now you can't train right because you've got that extra weight on, your knees are creaking a bit more than usual. Again, it's these things snowball effect. And I think that's what you're seeing with, I think Tyson Fury's maybe the best example of that, where I think in his pomp, he was an athletic freak at heavyweight, the way he could move and the feints he could throw and just the way he could get around. But I think years and years of very well documented abuse of his body has caught up with him now. And even all the size and even all the rest, I think that can only take you so far in a fight. Um, yeah. So again, mate, if it's not between the ears, I think you're lost. Doesn't matter how athletic you are. And that's kind of go back to Teo Lopez. I think he's got all the gifts. He definitely had them at 135, even at 140. He's got a lot right about him, but if you're not open and willing to take on new ideas and new advice and maybe change and shake things up, I think you're going to plateau at a certain point. And I think if he's not careful, he's going to turn into, this is Lopez I'm talking about, he's going to turn into like a luxury elite fighter where he looks brilliant against boys that come to bang, but against like a boxer like Devin Haney, it's just going to be the worst fight of all time. So people need to be open-minded and they need to work hard. I know that's very, very basic information, but you can only blag your way to the top for so long.
you know the scorecard for the Tyson Fury and Garneau fight? If
Uh-huh.
if that would have say, let's look at it from a different angle. If that would have said split decision win for Ngannou or a draw, how would we be looking at Tyson now?
Mm, much differently.
Won't we? If we'll be looking at him a lot differently, won't we? He got the wind in it, and that papers over a lot of it, doesn't it? Really. But I think he's a shot fighter myself.
You know this, and this all came from again from the Usyk rabbit hole. I'm gonna do a U-turn now, and I'm gonna stick with this. I'm not gonna change my mind. I think if they fight this year, I think Usyk gets it done. And I know previously I've said Fury, but I went back and I watched the Chaz Witherspoon fight, Usyk's first one from moving up after cruiserweight, and obviously he dispatched of him quite comfortably in the end. But go back tonight, mate, and have a look at Usyk's body composition against Witherspoon. Technically excellent. He didn't lose any of that, but he looked soft at heavyweight. His body looked vulnerable. He just didn't look. If you look at him, if you look at him versus Witherspoon, and you look at them now and some of the most recent training videos you see him, oh man, he looks so much more filled in. Like you said, he's got like no body fat. He's like a bull. He's a block of muscle. And obviously they're focusing on body work, and the more I look into the training and stuff, he's just I think he's filled into heavyweight unbelievably well when you kind of look at photos from them to now. Um, and I just think that there's obvious from all these delays, there's something rotten in the Fury camp. Nobody put their finger on it. Nobody really knows until it happens. But there's obviously a belief from within there, at least I believe, that they know that this is going to be a real tough night's work. So I think Usyk is already winning the mental battle. I think he trains far harder. And a lot of my thought previously I've been looking at, the Fury of years ago, the Fury of even like Wilder 2 after he kind of got healthy again after coming back, and then Wilder 3, but he just looked brutal against Big Ngannou. Just looked absolutely shocking when you watch it back. So yeah, mate, I'm not that I wasn't on the Usyk train, but I think he gets it done now. The more and more I think about it.
I think he'll set such a pace that he'll just tire him out.
Mm, I agree with you. I'm happy to take the L, or happy to go back on what I previously said. But again, just digging into it deeper, it just even when I did think Fury would win, I thought he really only had one method of victory. It was cut off the ring. I thought it might have looked something similar to what Froch did to Beauty. Now I know there wasn't a big size discrepancy with Froch and Beauty, but Froch sat back early, and when Beauty wanted to fight, Froch would, he would get him on the inside and he would turn him the way he wanted to, and he would kind of let Beauty come to him, and then when he did have him in his pocket, he put it to him. I thought that would kind of be the game plan from Fury, where he's the bigger fighter, he's got the reach. He would almost try and lull Usyk into him, and then when he did get him in close, he would turn him. He would hit him to the body. He would probably hit him low. I think if that does work at all, Fury will definitely get deducted at least 1 point for low blows. But Usyk has many more ways to win, in my opinion. And you just look at that movement against Ngannou. Like, I know he mightn't have trained and all the rest, but Ngannou's many things, but he's not fleet of foot. He's not a mover, and he was able to create angles on Fury, even carrying all that muscle. So yeah, man, I think Usyk will get it done. Um, Either by decision. Yeah, if I have to put my money on it, I'll say decision. Either decision or a late stoppage, but I think Fury will make it to the bell. Um, but yeah, unless he's able to do some really dirty things, I don't see how he gets it done anymore. Just based on his legs and based on his body now. So I'm thinking Usyk by decision in that one, but if it does happen.
Well, I wonder what the odds are on Ngannou knocking Joshua out and Usyk knocking Fury out.
That'd be a clinker of a bet, wouldn't it? If it came in, big odds.
Right?
Yeah, I checked odds checker last week, and it was almost a dead heat on the Usyk Fury fight. I think they were both. I think Fury was 6-5 on, and Usyk was 6-5. I think so. I think there was like very, very minimal in it, but I think Fury is still a slight favorite with the bookmakers. But when that fight was originally announced, I think that, well, not that I think, I know the odds were much further. You know, you'll never see a bookie on a bike, so it's getting closer and closer and closer. There's definitely something in that, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I just don't think that he's keen on it. I'm not saying he's a coward.
Mm-hmm.
Of course he's not, but it's not, he knows it's going to be his hardest fight.
Yeah, yeah. No, look, there's no, you can call Big Tyson many things. He's definitely not a coward. I don't think he's scared of Usyk as a man.
He's not stupid.
No, he's not either. I think it's less, he's less feared of Usyk the man than he is of losing that O. I think all of his fear and his anxiety that he'll never admit, I think it comes from, yeah, I've called this lad a pumped up middleweight forever. I talked about Sean Porter as a win over him. I've talked about all this. I can't lose to this fella. And I think the more time that goes by, he's kind of like, God, this fella's looking better. And, you know, it's getting tougher for me to get the weight off. It's getting tougher for me to move around, get proper sparring. So the clock is ticking. And I think it's ticking more on Mr. Fury than Mr. Usyk. But yeah, I think it'll happen. It's too much money to leave on the table. And I think it almost looks worse if he doesn't take the fight than if he does take it and loses. If he doesn't get absolutely, you know, schooled or flogged. So I think it'll happen. I think it'll be a close fight. Um, but yeah, now again, gun to my head, I would have to take Usyk by decision, honestly.
Yeah.
I think so, mate. I think so. Um, yeah, just again, go back and have a look at his body versus Witherspoon and what his body looks like now. Obviously, he hasn't grown in height, but just the composition, the muscle mass, everything down low, he just looks like he's. I think now from the most training videos, I think this is the best Usyk's ever looked at heavyweight. I'm not saying it's the best he's ever looked in his career, but in terms of his body, it's definitely the best he's looked at heavyweight. And I think that is a very, very, very dangerous proposition for Tyson that doesn't move around like he used to. So
Would
that's why yeah.
would Usyk be able to do Hunk?
Oh, mate. Oh, in a New York minute, I'd say that fight would last all of 2 rounds, maybe. Usyk could start putting that right hook to the body, and it'll be lights out for the Hunk. Absolutely, easy night's work.
All right, then, well, listen, thanks for coming on, Adam. All right, mate.
Anytime, bud. I'll sure we'll catch up over the weekend. All right.
All right, you take care, mate.
Cheers. Nice one, Russ. Bye bye.
Right. That was Adam, Irish kid living in San Francisco. Women love him, men want to be him. Big shout out to Kent. I hope you're well. Hope everybody's well who's listening. Okie dokie. Well, peace out. Booyaka.